Some people believe that a woman should be willing to build with a man, that women should not expect men to be successful already or have a lot of money, that you should be able to grow with him and get through that time where he's trying to work things out and make things happen and get to that mountaintop together. And I don't want to do my blah, 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 but I will say that I'm a little on the fence. I'm not even on the fence. I'm not a big fan of it, if I'm being real. I'm not a big fan because what I've seen happen in so many situations is women get burnt. Women get left behind. Women get taken advantage of because she's trying to build this man up rather than support his growth. There's a big difference there. It's one thing to be supporting him, supporting what the character that's already within him that is working towards something, versus putting this man on your back and trying to carry him to the finish line. However, I do acknowledge and understand that there are exceptions to every rule. And there are situations where, yes, he may not be financially where you would like him to be, but the question is, does he have the ingredients necessary to make it acceptable for you to wait for him, to wait while he is in that process? And the other reality is that as many women who may want a financially stable man, tons of women are with that man. They're waiting to get his stuff together, waiting to get to a better place financially. Now, I don't want you to feel bad if you are that woman. I want you to understand and be aware, whether you are that woman or you ever find yourself in this situation, because even some of you who may say that will never be me, it could happen to you. I want you to understand some principles that you need to be aware of if you're going to be waiting on his financial stability. So the first principle that needs to be in place, so the first thing we have to consider is, does he have his own plan? I stress the word own plan. Here's what I'm talking about. So you'll have a lot of situations where woman meets man, she likes man, he's a great guy, but for the sake of this discussion, he's broke. Okay? And she sees potential in him, right? She does believe this man could be something better and greater. And so now, in trying to accelerate the process and get him there so that she can have a better situation for herself as far as being in a relationship with him, she tries to instill in him what her vision is. She creates the plan for him, okay? And the reason why this is such a big problem is because if he does not have his own plan, one, then we have to start questioning, does he even have the character that would allow him to do what is necessary to get to that financially stable place, all right? Because unfortunately, some men are just lazy. Some men just don't care. Some men will do the bare minimum. And as long as they have you there as their woman, taking care of them in so many different ways, they have lost all incentive to work harder. All right? So you've got to be able to recognize that if he did not have a plan for himself, what the hell was he going to do with himself? Where was he going? You can't be his superwoman. You can't be his savior. All right? He has to have wanted this on his own, because you know how they always say, you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's one thing if he has his own plan and you may come in and you may help tweak it a little bit, or you may add some enhancements to it. That's cool. That's great, because you're supporting his already created vision. But when you're trying to put it in him, problem. The other reason why it's a problem is because you create this dynamic, and I've seen this happen so many times, where the woman now has her idea of where I want this man to go and how I want him to get there, all right? That may not be truly in alignment with what he wants to do and what resonates with him. So now you have this situation where she's trying to drag him to the finish line, and along the way, he's resenting her, he's resisting her, he is making this harder than it needs to be, as well as she is finding herself more stressed, more drained, all right, and having to compensate for his shortcomings. This is a recipe for disaster. This is going to cause so much more problems. Not to mention, here's the crazy thing. Even if you successfully get him to the destination you had for him, will he even be able to sustain it? Because again, if it's not who he is, if it doesn't align with what his true purpose is, it's going to blow up at some point. Or he may get there, because there are some men who don't know how to say no to their woman. And there are some women who are relentless with trying to achieve this thing that she wants to achieve, that he goes along with it. But again, the whole time he's resenting her. And while he's there and successful, he still resents her. And all we're asking for in that scenario is for more problems, an unfulfilling relationship, and for her to now feel very cheated, very like, I did all of this for you and you don't even appreciate it. How hurtful that's going to be. How devastating that can be to some women. So you got to not make the mistake of trying to pour the vision into him. Instead, you want to encourage him. You want to help pull it out of him. All right. It still has to come from him. So it's one thing. So let's say he doesn't have it already. You still believe in him. You still want to work with him here. All right. Well, then your approach has to be, how can I help you find it? How can I help you get to that place where you understand the direction you want to go in? And then again, once that's established, then you can support that, but you cannot create it for him. And before I even get to the next one, here's another thing to consider when you have to basically create the plan, create the vision, create his purpose. It's like this man has not learned how to stand on his own 2 feet. You have become his crutch. And now when you are not around, he does not know how to operate without you. He does not know how to function. He does not know how to make his own decisions because he always leaned on you to figure it out for him, to give him instruction. And you know, as a woman, you're not going to want to remain in that role forever with this man. So again, if he does not learn those skills by himself, and when I say by himself, through his own process that you can assist, but it still has to come from him, then it is a recipe for more problems later. Now, the second thing to consider while waiting for his financial stability is, how long can you really deal with this? So a big mistake a lot of women make, that happens a lot, is, again, in trying to be this encouraging, loving, supportive partner, there's no stated structure or stated timeline on what's the cutoff point here. It's just, okay, I'm just going to go with it and I'm going to hope for the best. But he has no deadline. And though we don't want to put unnecessary stress and pressure on someone, they need to understand, he needs to understand there is a cutoff point. Because again, when you're dealing with a man who has yet to reach his financial stability, and to be clear, we're saying stability. We're not even talking about being rich right now. We're saying, okay, he is good enough that he could stand on his own 2 feet, that he's no longer a burden financially to the relationship. He can be an asset. And yeah, he can provide for you in certain ways, at the very least. But doesn't mean he's Jeff Bezos tomorrow, okay? But without him knowing or understanding that there is a cutoff point, it is very easy for people to get lackadaisical. It is very easy for people to drag their feet. It's very easy that when someone comes across a very difficult obstacle, for them to not put up the fight necessary to overcome it because they have the comfort of you being there and you not going anywhere. All right? It is knowing that you could be lost genuinely. And that if there's a deadline, so to speak, knowing that that time could be around the corner, that can help light the fire under him to make sure he stays on track. Now, granted, would we want someone to be motivated on their own and find their reasons why they should be pushing hard regardless? Of course. But if you are going to embrace this journey with this man, then you cannot dismiss the reality of how impactful a deadline can be. And again, we're not even saying the deadline has to be what I think the deadline should be or another person thinks it should be. It's how long can you truly handle this? If you can bear this burden with this man for the next 2 years, and hopefully in those 2 years, he's showing progress. And of course, that's going to be a key part of it. Is, are we even making progress in those 2 years, or are we stagnant for 2 years? But if you're able to deal with it for 2 years, and deal with it does not mean I'm going to suck it up, but have an attitude about this. It doesn't mean I'm going to deal with it, but I'm losing attraction to him. Deal with it means I'm accepting it what it is right now, and I can still show up as a great partner and girlfriend and be the things that he needs me to be. I can still put my best foot forward. How long can you sustain that without him having a certain level of financial stability? And you should not be afraid or ashamed of expressing that early on. Because here's the thing, and I should have mentioned this in the very beginning. No one's entitled to a relationship. There is nothing wrong with telling this man you don't currently qualify based on your financial instability. All right? Relationships require more than just we like each other or even we love each other. There is more that plays into it if we're trying to make it successful. So you don't owe him anything. All right? He's lucky you're giving him this opportunity, to be honest with you. So you giving a deadline should not be a problem. He should thank his lucky stars he even has that much time to earn your trust and to establish that he is serious and willing to put in the work to do what needs to be done to get to that stable level. Okay? So again, be open and transparent about that. Maybe even if you have to have other benchmarks where it might be, okay, well, listen, after 6 months, we need to see X amount of progress. You know what I'm saying? Or after this much time, you need to be able to do this or that. Whatever it is, that's going to allow you to feel comfortable in this process of being patient while he finds his financial stability. All right. So again, before I continue, I always got a little stuff I got to add sometimes. So my videographer brought it to my attention where some of you may be wondering, well, when is it okay to even bring up this question and have this discussion? And from my perspective, as soon as possible. Like the minute you recognize and it's understood that this man is not financially stable, is struggling in this area, there needs to be a discussion of things like, what is your plan? You know, what are you doing to improve this? And even maybe you start off, rather than saying what your initial deadline is, asking him, well, how long do you think it's going to take you to get to that stable place? You know what I'm saying? But then being honest and saying, well, listen, I'm letting you know, I'm willing to be patient, but this is my cutoff time. If it still hasn't been changed or get better by this point, I can't do this. Let me also throw this in. Having a deadline does not mean the door is completely shut, right? It just means, okay, you cannot continue to remain in this relationship, in this situation with him, giving yourself fully to him while he still needs to get himself together. So simply meaning, okay, if we made 1 year to cut off, 1 year has passed and things have not improved. It's simply saying, okay, we can't continue as boyfriend, girlfriend anymore. But when you get your stuff together, my door is open. And listen, there might be some men who take issue with that, who think that's wrong, where you left him when he was down. No, again, you even giving him a year was more than you had to. All right? If he can't respect that, if he's going to use that and say, oh, well, you don't love me, you know what? Then he is not ready to mature as a man and take accountability, because if he can't be real with himself and say, damn, you know what? I had a year and I have not made anything better, she should leave me. I understand why she can't keep doing this. I may not like it. I may not want that to be the outcome, but I should be able to respect it, because I understand I am not, or I acknowledge that I am not doing my part and putting in the effort necessary to make things better for her and for us. All right, so that brings me to the next point, and I've kind of alluded to it, but let's get deeper into it. So the next thing for you to understand is he putting in the work, or are you doing the work for him? All right. So in number one, we talked about giving him the vision, giving him the plan, right? But now let's say we're past that. And let's just say he had his own plan. He had his own vision. Great. But now we find ourselves doing it for him. So the example that always pops in my head when I talk about stuff like this is situations where man gets laid off from work, right? He needs to find a job. And you see these situations where it's the woman putting in more time, researching jobs, sending in his resume, doing everything for the man. And he ain't doing nothing on his own. And it could be months, no job. And then you'll have these scenarios where sometimes she's getting him interviews and he's coming back with nothing. And it's not simply because, oh, these jobs just don't want to hire. It's just unfortunate, he's coming across bad luck or something. No, it's this man wasn't serious about the process. So why are you expecting to be serious about the interview? If he wasn't willing to put in his own effort to even find a job, what makes you think he is going to approach this in the way that he needs to? A lot of times he's only going on those interviews to appease the woman. He don't even want that job. He may not even want a job at all. Let me tell you, again, this goes back to, did he have a plan for himself, or you put it in him? Because you have some scenarios where the man has gotten comfortable staying home. He don't want to work no more. He sees you taking care of everything and accepting it, which is again why when there's no deadline, you open the door for guys like that to take full advantage. All right. And just drag this thing out, because to him, well, you ain't going nowhere. But he doesn't want that job. So you keep getting frustrated because damn, nothing's working. Yeah, he ain't trying to make it work. So you have to be careful as a woman not to fall into the habit. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with assisting. There's nothing wrong with wanting to help. It's one thing if he was already applying to 10 jobs a day and you said, well, I'm going to help you and we're going to make it 15 jobs. So I'll handle 5 and he's handling 10. Awesome. That's teamwork. That's beautiful. But you applying to all 15 for him? No. You try to talk to all your friends and family to hook him up, but he doesn't make any effort to do the same thing? No. We got an issue. And so what I feel it's important for me to mention here is that a lot of women try to sometimes validate this behavior with we're nurturers and we want to pour in. And that's great. That's great. But this has gone beyond nurturing, and now you're coddling. Now you're enabling. All right? And what you have to understand is that for a man, gaining financial stability is a growth process. All right? There are things that he needs to learn along the way. There are different aspects of his character that he needs to develop and strengthen. There are different things that he needs to understand. And if you interfere with the process too much, you are stunting his growth. All right. You are killing his ability to become the man that you will one day be able to lean on in moments where you need to be able to lean on him. So you're not doing him or yourself any favors by taking the burden of the load and doing the work for him. All right. And some of you, this is hitting my spirit. I feel the need to say this too. Some of you overcompensate in what you're doing for the man because you're trying to gain validation or you want to feel more valuable here. So it's like, here's my chance to be his superwoman so he will love me more. But if he loved you so much, he wouldn't want to overburden you in the first place. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like saying, here's a war out there, and to show my man I have his back, I'm going to go out there and fight that war for him. I'm going to go on the front lines, guns blazing. But the man who loves and cares about his woman is going to be like, no, wait a minute. You stay over there. Like, don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't stress yourself out. Don't do all this extra stuff. Again, there's a level of help. You can watch my back, but I don't need you out here sacrificing yourself completely. I hope that analogy is hitting with some of y'all. It's like the man who cares doesn't want you to overstretch yourself like that. Constantly? No. Maybe one time he might let it slide, but constantly? No. So you got to make sure, you got to ask yourself, why am I doing so much? Why am I doing all this? And hell, I don't know, I feel the need to say this, and I hate saying this, but you have to ask yourself, does he even deserve it? Does he deserve it? Because it's another thing where this is a man who has been that for you. He's been those things for you. He's always had your back. He's poured into you. So it's one thing when you've been with a man who maybe was stable, lost that stability, now trying to regain it. You know who he's been. You know how he showed up for you through this relationship. Okay, cool. Now we can, it's more understandable for you to go above and beyond for this man. But the man who's never even shown you that is not even behaving well in the overall relationship, is not respecting and treating you as you deserve, and you doing all this extra stuff, he don't even deserve it. He does not deserve it. So you've got to catch yourself and recognize this is not helpful. This is not going to allow him to grow. This is burning you out. And hell, he may not even be the man that you should be with in the first place. All right, real quick, before we get to the next question, people are always asking me about coaching, wanting their questions answered. Well, I have a great opportunity for you. Join my special coaching program where thousands of women have joined and they're having their lives change. Go to www.receivingmyblessings.com or click the link in the description or in the comment section. There's modules on tapping into your feminine energy, finding your purpose, meeting relationship-minded quality men, healing from your past, so many other things, hearing God more clearly, you name it. And we also have live Q&As where I answer your personal questions. Do not miss out on this amazing opportunity. Again, click the link in the description or in the comment section or go to receivingmyblessings.com. All right, so now another thing to know or consider when waiting on a man's financial stability is he needs to pick up the slack in other areas. So I'm a big believer that, providing for a woman isn't just financial. There's so many ways that a partner can be a benefit to you, can be an asset and not a burden, can help alleviate some stress in your life. And so if we're going to make the concession of, all right, he is not there financially yet, cool. Because everybody's not going to be there. Everybody still has some work. There's a lot of people that still got some work to do. But then he can't just be, for example, he doesn't have a job right now, and all he does is lay up on your couch and drive your car and eat your food. Like, no, he's being a bum. Let's keep it real. He needs to be able to help you in other areas, whatever other areas that you can be assisted in. Hell, there are some guys, I'm just using this as an example, some guys know how to cook. Some guys enjoy cooking. All right, well, maybe that's one area he can pick up the slack for you. Where it's like, all right, cool. He doesn't have the money right now, but man, that man can feed you really well and keep you and your belly happy. And you may value that very much. That may have been a chore that you used to have to do on your own, and now he can handle it. Boom. That's a plus. You know what I'm saying? Like it could be when it comes to running errands and handling different tasks. Okay, boom, there he goes. That's another thing he can fill in and take care of. Fixing things around the house. There are so many different areas, different little things that can be knocked off your to-do list, your chore list, that he can now take care of, especially since if he is, because not all financial instability is flat out not having a job. Some of it is having to find a better job or find better pay. But if he is in a position where he doesn't even have a job right now, he has no excuse. No excuse that he cannot help you out in other ways. Again, this man should find a way to be an asset, not a burden. Now, you as a woman, this is important for me to say to you. Many of you have become accustomed to being independent. Many of the women who are willing to take on a man who is not financially stable is a woman who herself has stability, knows how to handle her business and get things done. And so because of this, you're not conscious of the fact that you are operating in a very independent woman energy. So now you're not requiring anything else of him. You're not even realizing maybe, or you're not being conscious of giving him things to do because you're so used to doing it yourself. All right. So you have to make sure that you take a step back and say, okay, if I'm going to accept a situation like this, what can I let this man do? What can I put on his plate and remove from mine? Now, granted, I would much rather that this man take initiative and say, what can I take off your plate? What can I do for you? How can I be of greater assistance, right? But we can't control what he does. And I want to make sure that if by some chance he doesn't ask, and if him not asking isn't enough for you to say, well, maybe I shouldn't even be here, then you have to be willing to speak up. Now, in fairness, I always say we don't just see a red flag, we run, we address it. So I would want you to not just run because he doesn't ask. I would want you to say it. Because again, I don't know if you've given him the impression that you don't need help. A lot of you give off that energy and impression to not just the man you're with, but to people, your family, to your friends. And this is why you find yourself in a situation where people don't check up on you like that. People don't offer you assistance randomly like that. Because in their mind, you're the strong one. You're the one that has it all together. And so you have to make sure you're allowing people to see and understand that you do need help sometimes, or you appreciate help, and that it would be a great benefit to you if they were willing to take some things off your plate, but more specifically in this situation, the man that you're dealing with who's still working towards his financial stability. All right, so the next thing that is very important for you to understand while waiting for a man's financial stability is you have to ask yourself, how is the overall relationship? So I kind of mentioned it already, but let's talk about it again. You know, it's one thing to wait for a man who is doing everything else right. It's another thing to wait for a man who is showing you issues in so many different areas. And what happens to a lot of women in these dynamics is that they get caught up and even guilted into overlooking so many of the other red flags and issues, because it's like leaving him now is leaving him while he's still down, leaving him while he's still working through this struggle, right? And you feel bad. Some of you don't want to walk away from him because you feel like he literally cannot survive without you. Whereas God forbid, if you're already deep in this relationship, you've let this man move into your home in some cases, and so now you feel like he has nowhere to go. But if he's not going to do right by you, put his ass out. I'm sorry. I had to say it like that. I felt the need to. But no, I have no sympathy for him whatsoever if he's going to act the fool in your home, if he's going to mistreat you, if he isn't going to be the man that you need him to be, while you are willing to overlook something as significant as financial stability and attempt to be patient with him. And let's face it, if he's not stable, chances are you are putting forth more resources financially than him. So you are carrying the burden of the bills. You're doing all of this and he still wants to act up? Put his ass out. Excuse my language, get him out. Plain and simple. And if he has to be homeless, that's on him. Because unfortunately, it may be him falling flat on his face that will allow him to wake up and do what he needs to do. Now, that doesn't mean just because he finally wakes up after you put him out that you're supposed to take him back and he's the man for you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you are afraid or you are feeling guilty that putting him out is leaving him out in the cold, what you may not realize is he may need that. He may need that because as long as he's with you, if he is not acting right, that means he is a man who is not appreciative of what's in front of him. He is not grown up. He is not matured. He is not respecting the situation. He doesn't deserve any more grace. Plain and simple. Now, of course, you know me. I'm always about, you talk about it. You know what I'm saying? If you haven't addressed it yet, that's a different story. But if you've addressed it, what are we waiting for? So it is important that he understands. And so let's just say we haven't even gotten that far deep. Let's say we're at the beginning of this dating or relationship situation and we need to have a discussion about this. You got to let it be known, like, listen, I'm willing to be patient and work with you here, but I need you to be on point in these other areas. I need you to make sure that the communication is right. I need you to make sure that you're pouring into me right. Now, here's the thing, because I don't want you to be like, have this attitude where, oh, you owe me because I'm doing this for you. I don't want you as a woman to slide into taking advantage of being in that position. I don't want you to mistreat him because you, in the back of your mind, you know that he needs you right now. It's not what I want you to do. I just want you to establish the standards that need to be set in this relationship. And listen, here's the reality. Even if he was financially stable, the standards need to be set. I just think, and even if he was financially stable, he's not allowed to just deviate from the standards and think it's okay. But I do think it's a bigger slap to the face when a man is being given the grace of a woman waiting for his financial stability, yet he still wants to act in disrespectful or inappropriate ways or fall short in other areas of the relationship. All right. So we need to communicate those things and make sure we are on the same page so that we can have a great relationship. And all the other things that we've talked about so far on this list are understood and embraced and respected if we're going to move forward together. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on the 5 big reasons why men keep wasting your time. Why are these men wasting your time? So let me break it down for you and get right to it. Now listen, I have a number 1 reason at the very end of this, but I want to list a couple of reasons that maybe